is straight up 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I just want to say welcome to everyone who is joining us for the Leadership Now series. And if this is your first time, just knowing that what we have created at Driven Leadership is we really wanted to create a community of like-minded people. We're looking for mentors, role models, leaders who have a message to share. Whether it's giving us hope within this time, whether it's giving us tips, tools of leadership within. We have people that own companies that watch this. We have people who've been furloughed. We have frontline workers. We have just anyone and everyone who is hungry. And so we bring people in like Dean Raasch going, okay, so what's your story? What's a lesson that I can learn to help move me forward? And then we believe that every single person has a message to help us live even bigger and bolder in our life. So before we get to Dean, for those of you who are watching on Facebook Live, we're actually doing this through a Zoom webinar, so I can't see any questions or comments. We'll see that afterwards. For those of you who have joined us on the live Zoom webcast, there is a chat bar, so there's just some housekeeping items. If you have comments, just type them in the chat. It defaults to the panelists, so make sure that you have it to attendees and panelists. And if you have questions for Dean or you want to make something specific to him, put it on the Q&A. And we love to make this interactive because we know the more interactive that we get, the more it sparks more conversation. So if you have a question, we want to bring you in live. So make sure that your camera's ready, your mic is ready, and hopefully that doesn't stress you out. If it stresses you out and you want to play safe, just ask the question and we'll ask the question to Dean as well. So before we get into Dean, next week at 9 a.m., we have a gentleman named Dante Scott who is going to be joining us. And oh my gosh, Dante has, well, we all have a message, right? But Dante, at 15 years old, he was certified as an adult and had to serve 10 years in the Nevada Department of Corrections. Could you imagine, 15 years old, you are now certified as an adult where your brain doesn't even think. He goes to jail for 10 years. And he came out of that in just this hunger mindset to take his story and to help other people live a bigger life. So the things that he's doing now, he is actually the president of Las Vegas Homes, Inc. It's a real estate development company, investment firm. He is the CEO of Housing Assistance Corp, which is a nonprofit entity providing jobs and housing to the less fortunate in the community. There's so many things that this man is doing. You want to get on this because he will inspire you. Thinking that you can't do things, he'll make you think again. So Dante Scott, next Tuesday at 9 o'clock. So for our guest speaker for today, Dean, I have been so excited to have you on. You've been a little bit elusive. I've reached out to you and I'll say, hey, Dean, because you have such an incredible story and just who you are and what you stand for. Your mass truly has become your message, and it has inspired and changed the lives of not just youth, of also adults. So before we get into just me asking questions and whatnot, your topic is an undying drive for life. So give us a little bit of background about who you are and why this topic is so important to you.
Well, first, I wasn't that elusive, but I guess I was a little elusive. And it really is, it's a big topic for me because of my experiences and the things that I've gone through. And I think, as you prefaced in the write-up for it about the health stuff that I went through at age 19, being diagnosed with acute myelogenous leukemia, and my doctor telling me that my chance to live to the age of 24 was about 10 to 12%. And my first thought on hearing that was, well, I'm different. I'm not, I'm not going to give up that easily. And I believe my words to my doctor, if I remember correctly, were, okay, well, what do we got to do to get done with this? Because I got a lot of shit I want to do in my life. And I'm not sure if I could swear on here or not.
Oh, you can. It's fine.
But I know you well enough to know that it's probably okay.
That's right.
So it was, what do I need to do to get on with my life and the treatments that I have to go through? And we had a lot of conversations about how to make that work, and there was never any guarantee. And it seemed like every time I turned around with the stuff that I was going through with the leukemia and then onto a bone marrow transplant, it was never any easier, but there were pretty clear decisions that had to be made at age 19 about what do I need to do to take control of my life if I'm going to have a life. And that's really what it was. You know, if I'm really going to have a life beyond the age of 24, what decisions do I have to make today to give myself the best chance for that? These were not, I mean, I guess these were life or death decisions. I mean, there was no other way around it. And I'm fortunate the way that it happened, because I did survive. I've had a great life over the past. I just celebrated my 33rd anniversary of having my diagnosis on July 3rd, which, by the way, was also the 9th anniversary of getting engaged to my wife. So I wanted to make sure I got that out there. And,
right. You can't forget that one.
No, we cannot forget about Carrie at all. So, but, you know, the things that I've been able to do since that time have been, you know, amazing at the least. And one of the things, I'm going to ramble because, you know, that's what I do.
That's fine. I'll stop you if we get too off track.
But one of the things that I've been able to maybe start doing a little bit more is being involved on Facebook in some of the support groups for people with leukemia, people with bone marrow transplants, and also involved with Marrow on the Move, which is the organization out of Minnesota that is there to support adults with bone marrow transplants. And one of the things when I share my story, I always hear back is how I just give them hope. You know, the fact that I've been around and lived so long, and some people are still in the midst of battling, and it gives them a sense that maybe they too can live, because the diagnosis and the prognosis, they're not good, you know. And so for those of us that have made it, we're a very small minority. And for those that are battling it and hoping that they can make it, I think my story and just seeing me present gives them some hope. So
you're lying on the hospital bed, and you have a 10 to 12% chance of living, 10 to 15.
Correct.
Okay.
At age 19.
And at age 19, and and your mom had passed away prior to that.
Correct. My mom passed away when I was 10 years old, and she passed away from cancer as well. So
you're basically almost lying on your deathbed, faced with this huge thing, hanging over your life, going, man, I'm 19 years old. My mom passed away when I'm 10, and the doctors aren't giving me a lot of hope, but screw it, I have a lot of shit to do.
Right.
So in those moments, did you ever have the dark times where you're like, am I going to make it?
I did. Didn't happen as often, fortunately. So I tried as best I could to keep my mind straight. I remember my grandma telling me that no matter how bad you think you have it, somebody has it worse. So I told her, I said, Grandma, how the hell can somebody have it worse than me right now? But she was right. I mean, there were people that were worse off than me, even as bad a shape I was in. And so I had to remind myself that, you know, I'm not gone yet. But there were a couple of times that, you know, it gets to the point where you just want to give up. You know, I planned my funeral, had notified, you know, friends, you're my pallbearers. So, and actually one night, the nurses came in and they were concerned because I was breathing so shallow with so few respirations that they thought I was passing away. And I woke up in a lot of pain because they reversed my morphine by giving me another drug to kind of offset that, because it was the morphine that was depressing my respirations. And I guess the sign of pain was the fact that I was still alive. So, and that was the worst I got. And then from there, I started getting better.
So your title, the Undying Drive for Life. So in those moments, and yes, you're planning and you're saying goodbye, yet there still had to be a fight within you to say, okay, I'm not here. I'm not done yet. I haven't left.
Right.
So what did you do to keep yourself in a place to continue to fight?
Well, I was a little stubborn.
Just a little bit? The Dean we know is a lot stubborn.
I was, maybe this is where my stubbornness started from. Could be. No, I doubt it. I was stubborn before that. Was a little bit stubborn, and so, I did things. I tried to read, which was kind of difficult to focus at times. Um, I did, I made little wallets or things like that. They gave me projects to do to kind of keep myself busy. Um, in the transplant, I wasn't allowed to leave my room very often because of the potential for infections. And so I was pretty much locked up in there the whole time, but I had, movies and magazines and things like that to kind of keep me occupied. So it was how to keep your mind going and not just kind of sit there, which can be really difficult to do. I mean, I would just go walk down the hall once I was allowed out of my room more often. I would walk down the hall and just go sit in this end little, I guess, waiting room type of thing, or rest area, whatever you want to call it. But it was at the University of Minnesota and overlooked the Mississippi River, so I was able to kind of look out the window and read magazines and have some normalcy. Even though I was still inside for weeks on end, but it was a chance to actually just feel a little normal, have conversations with the nurses about things other than, what was going on. So anything to have some normalcy. The other thing that I did is I watched different shows or watched the news. It's funny as it sounds, I believe it was the Iran-Contra situation was going on, and so I was very into watching that and telling people about it. So it was something to keep the mind active. And that was just, you're still living in that sense. You weren't just laying there and wallowing in self-pity. I never did that. I mean, I had times where I struggled, but I never wallowed in self-pity. I never asked why me. Wasn't worth the effort.
So it's interesting listening to you, because I just flashed to the pandemic we're in. And it's like, we're in lockdown. The people are just craving some type of normalcy, just to figure out how to live. Are you considered high risk?
Yes.
Okay. So what are you doing to still have that drive for life now?
Same thing I always did. I haven't changed my habits.
Okay.
I haven't changed my habits. I haven't changed where I go. I haven't done anything differently. And I know that sounds abnormal and scary for some people, for somebody like me to say that. But if we decide that we want to hunker down and just avoid everything, all human contact, all aspects of life that we were doing before, we've already given up.
Yeah.
And I know I don't know if I'm a minority in this sense on this, but I know that some people, when I tell them this stuff, they get frustrated with me in a significant way sometimes. But at the same point, when I was coming out of my treatments, I wore a mask in public for 9 months or longer, if I remember correctly. And that was for my protection, so that I didn't catch something from somebody else. I had an actual filter on my mask that was better than even an N95 mask, specially made, I had to wear that for months, and they were hot and it was miserable, but I was at least able to live. 6 months after I was released from the hospital, I learned how to water ski.
Wow. Have you ever water ski with Frank Harrison?
I have not, but I would love.
Frank's got to take you.
I've seen the stuff that he does, and he would smoke me on the water. I watched the video that showed him like slalom skiing, doing this big swooping curve. I can't even get up on a slalom. I have tried it numerous times, and I was never able to get up on it. But I guess I've got to get out there and see Frank again, and have him teach me how to do more. But yeah, no, I learned how to water ski 6 months after getting out of the hospital. I was back in college 3 weeks after I got out of the hospital, all against my doctor's recommendations. But I had to make what was right for me.
Yeah. Well, that was my next question was, so when you knew you were going to live and that you were, there was still this odds happening, it's like, okay, so you have your bone marrow transplant and you're wearing a mask and you're doing, but it's like, I'm living.
Right.
So you water ski, you went back to school. What else did you do?
Traveled. That a year after I was out of the hospital, I took a trip for a month to Italy and Greece through college. And so I actually had a chance to visit the island of Crete. I was in Yugoslavia, Italy, and then Greece for a month. And then I decided to go back to Europe, and then I went and lived in Denmark. And in the process, I backpacked through like another 20 countries while I was there. I just did what I wanted to do. I mean, I didn't let anything stop me. I figured out a way to make it happen, and I just did it. Because I used to joke, and I know this is kind of a bad joke to make, and I would say, well, I'm going to run up credit card debt because I'm not supposed to live to 24 anyway. Who's going to collect the debt from me? I outlived that. I had to pay it back.
So the knowing that you were defying the odds and knowing that there were still unknowns, did it just help you, and it sounds like it, but it just help you live life completely differently with really no restraints?
Yeah, I guess the best way, yeah, no restraints, no fear. And sometimes that can get a little, not work in your favor necessarily, but at the same time, it really basically tells me there's nothing that I can't do. I've already beaten this. So that means that any other obstacle that's there is definitely beatable in some sense. It's just a matter of how do you beat it? How do you get to the end? Graduating from college, doing all these other things, starting a business, whatever it might have been, all these things were all things that I know that I can do because I've already beaten this massive, horrible, miserable disease.
So I'm going to fast forward you because we met you, 2010, 11?
About 10, yeah.
Okay.
2000, yeah.
And you were going through this crazy journey, and that's where we met you within the journey. And then
Yep.
you came out to the Forge, but at that time it was Leadership Foundation, which we rebranded.
Yep.
And there was a defining moment because we always knew that you were meant to do, and you knew that, like you were meant to do something with your with your message to help people, and yet you were still playing safe.
Mm-hmm.
What created the shift to where you just said it's time?
Are you putting me back up on the log?
Yes.
So my buddy Frank Harrison and I were partners, and I'm afraid of heights. Still afraid of heights, but afraid of heights. And I saw this log strung between two trees that you could walk across. And now it's probably 30 feet above the ground, but to me it was 3,000 feet above the ground. And I was nervous and emotional and tearing up, but I committed I was going to do that one first because that was my biggest obstacle. Mm-hmm. And so Frank, who's not afraid of heights or anything, at 69 years old, goes, I'll go first. So he shimmies up this tree, he walks across it, he comes to the middle, he does his little nesty plunge off the tree, and he goes, see, easy. And I'm like, sure. I get halfway up the tree and I'm bawling. I get onto the log, and I know you watch because you're yelling at me at times to get out of my head and all that kind of fun stuff. And I held onto that tree for, I don't know, 8-10 minutes, but committed that I was going to get across it. And I shimmied across that damn tree as best I could, got to the other side, yelling and screaming all kinds of stuff. And I don't remember what I was saying, and held on to the other side and said, I'm done, get me down. And he said, oh, you got to go back to the middle to get off the tree. And I went, ugh. Went back to the middle, got off the tree. But a huge weight lifted in terms of, and of course, see, you got me all emotional here, Mary. So good at that. A huge weight lifted and a huge burden in terms of me believing in myself and going after things that really scare the hell out of me. And heights is one thing that still does scare the hell out of me. But I also then went skydiving shortly after that to prove to myself that I could still get this out of my head. And I jumped out of a plane at 4,100 feet on a static line because I wanted to do it by myself. I didn't want anybody on my back. And so that was the next thing that I did, and it went really, really well. So Yeah.
So then you jump off the log, and all
Yep.
of a sudden you're like, I'm supposed to do something with my life.
Correct.
So not the skydiving. What else did you end up doing?
I ended up writing some books, a couple of books, and I started getting into some motivational, inspirational speaking, primarily for youth. So
his books are called Hugs from Heaven and Always Here.
yes.
So what are the books about?
So because of my experiences, sometimes my thoughts are fairly deep and emotional, but Always Here is actually a story about me losing my mom. They're both illustrated, and it's told through animals, so it's a little bit more low key in that sense, and easier to for people to maybe kind of appreciate and accept. But the storyline itself is pretty accurate in terms of the experience that I had when my mom passed, and that had to do with after she passed, laying in bed one night. And I heard her voice like it was like she was standing right next to me. And she just told me everything will be okay. So I put that into the story. I used relatives names to help tell the story. But it really it's that, when somebody passes, even though they're physically gone, they're always with you in some manner. I have had unbelievable responses from people related to that book, from adults who had parents pass away 20 years previous that said they read the book and just bawled. Parents that gave them to a child of theirs that they lost a spouse and the child was struggling, and they gave them that book and it opened them up at counseling after they read the book, so they're able to talk about it. So it's the people that have been impacted by that one have been truly amazing. It's hard for me to appreciate sometimes how that message resonates with people. But it's had an impact. And then Hugs from Heaven, I wanted to write another one, and Hugs from Heaven is actually about a parent who loses a child. And the story came to me because a person that I had known through some networking and some business events that lost his 4-month-old baby girl. She just happened to pass away during a nap, and no explanation, no reason, no medical issue, things like that. And it kind of broke my heart. And so I wrote this story in that sense. And the sheep, the lamb that's in there, is named Lillian, and that's named after my aunt, the one relative of mine that never had her own children. And so I named that after her. And the idea is that even though your child passes, again, they're with you in some capacity, and that they're okay. They're gone, but they're okay. And I dedicated that book to that young girl that baby that passed away. And before I even published it, I gave it to the parents to read, and they gave me their blessing on it. They said it was, one of the best things that they read to help them with the loss of their daughter. So those are my two stories, my two books that I read. But I think it's important for people to appreciate that when somebody's gone, they're really not gone. They're still with us in some manner, some shape or another. So,
you know what amazes me about you, Dean, and just knowing you, like over the past decade, and watching the growth in you and there was a piece of you that you always had the sarcastic mindset. You would just keep things at, arm's length, and yet underneath there's such compassion. And the more you stepped into your gifts, the more you stepped into your voice, the more you started owning the story, not to own it because there's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
It's when you started using it to help people, like I look at the books and it makes me think about, we all, and I say this all the time, we all have a message, like we all have a message. Yep. And we think, well, who am I to share this? Or, oh, that was just a stupid thought. Or, who would ever read this? It doesn't matter. I've always said, if it's just one person that we touch, one person needs the message that we have. And we're responsible to step up, but we have to start believing in ourselves. And, through this whole journey from the log to starting to speak, a whole nother can of worms opened up.
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to talk about that?
Sure. Although not
in depth. No, just let's
surface
just
level.
surface level.
Yeah. So shortly after we started having some positive, things and doing some outreach, I had been out to another leadership development program, and I met some really neat people out there, and I confided in one of them. His name was Ricky, and Ricky had told a story about his dad and how his dad did this whistle to let him know things were okay, type of thing. And for whatever reason, that story resonated with me in a way that allowed me to come back and let my soon-to-be future wife know that I had been sexually abused at about the ages of 9 and 10. And it happened while my mom was going through her illness and while she was dying. And so somebody had decided that I was a pretty easy victim because there's a lot of chaos going on in my world. Mom was in the hospital, dad was working a lot, I was being shuttled around for different people to help take care of me, and in that process, that took place. So it was, I believe I've said 27 years or so after it happened that I finally admitted it happened, and maybe another 2 years after that before I finally sought any kind of help in counseling. And I still go to counseling, and it's still really painful, and I'm still in the very early stages of going through this. So, but I will tell you, I have brought that into some of my speeches that I've done, and the impact has been unbelievable. I was voting last November, and put my ballot in, and a woman stopped me who was working at the polling place and said, "I heard you're going to be speaking at such and such a place." And I said, "I am." And I said, "I did already, actually." She missed it. And she said, "I'm sorry, I missed it. I really wanted to be there." She said, "Your story resonates with me." And she's probably late 60s, early 70s. And she said, "I went through the same thing you did as a child. And it's just nice to know that somebody is out there sharing it so we all don't feel alone." And because of what I've gone through, sometimes, as you know, sometimes the hugging thing can be a little
Right.
stressful for me. She wanted to give me a hug, so my arms are down my side. And my wife's like, "Just hug her."
And you're like,
So,
"Why can't we be 6 feet distance right now?"
it wasn't in place at the time. I didn't have an excuse. But the most impactful thing for me, really, even if I can get this out, I spoke at a middle school. I did 8 classes, like boom, boom, boom. They have 9 periods, I think it was. I took like 45 minutes for lunch. I did 8 high energy classes, like back to back. And I got done with the last class, and I hand out suckers. It's my little treat as I'm asking them to participate because it works. And one girl was sitting there pretty quiet, and after a couple of kids asked for more suckers, she finally said something to the effect that we have a lot in common. And I said, "Oh, why is that?" And she said, somebody took advantage of me too. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." And it wasn't connecting with me yet. And she said, I was sexually abused by a family friend for 3 years. She was an 8th grader. And then, then the next thing that she said to me is the thing that just rocked my world completely. She said, "Because of what you told me today, I don't want to kill myself anymore." Yeah, process that.
Yeah.
I had a 2-hour drive to go home, and that was kind of the last conversation I had of the day. And that always sticks with me. That to me is, as tough as it is sometimes for me to talk about my stuff, that's the story that says you just changed a life.
But you give hope, right? And I look at adversity can either rock us,
Yep,
or it can launch us.
correct.
I'm emotional. I get you.
Yep, I know you do.
But if we're not willing to go there,
Mm-hmm.
we don't help other people be free.
Right.
And it's I think that's why the mess becomes our message is so strong.
Yep.
Dang it, we weren't gonna do this, Dean.
It's the world I live in.
I'm gonna launch a poll. And it's multiple choice, but it's, you know, when adversity hits us, and it doesn't matter, it could be drugs and alcohol, it could be death of a family member, it could be a health issue, it could be, I mean, we all have stuff, like every single one of us has stuff.
Yep.
Life isn't fair, but I really believe it's what we do with it.
Yep.
Are we going to let it handcuff us and then blame? Or are we going to move forward and say, you know what, even though this is hard and it sucks, I'm going to own it, I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to help people, because it gives people hope.
Right.
It really does. And it's, you know, looking at you as a leader, because you've done, from a speaker, you know, you go in and you talk to so many kids and business owners, and you've been a leader of businesses, you've been a manager, you've been an entrepreneur, you know, you've been an individual. How has adversity and being and gone through what you've gone through, how has it helped you become a better leader?
I don't want to say it makes me fearless, but what it does is it tells me in some sense that I've been through worse, and so I can get through this. It really, that's kind of the cerebral side of it. You know, it's that I know what struggle is. This is not struggle. You know, the business is struggling, things getting, you know, messed up, whatever it is. Yeah. To me, that's not struggle. That's just part of the workday. You know, we can fix this. We just got to figure out how to do it. Take the emotion out of that, find out a way to fix it. That's not struggle. We put so much energy into things that really don't have the true impact that we think they do. Does that make sense? I mean, it's we get lost in that minutia, and we forget what's important.
Right.
You know, yeah, you can have bad days and here and there, but at the end of the day, you know, you have to make a decision. It's your choice to either live there, move above it, move on from it, whatever. And if you're not willing to make that choice to change, then I don't know what to do to help you. But the struggle is not looking at things for the opportunity that exists in them. I mean, it's simply said as that. I mean, I think that, and maybe sometimes I can come off a little cold and disconnected when I say things like that, because of the fact that I know what a real struggle is. And I'm not taking away from other people, because we all have different experiences and different ways, you know, of looking at things. I've said this numerous times. My life is normal. And I've had people kind of smirk at me and laugh and go, well, no, it's not. I go, yeah, it is. It's all I know. The life that I know, this is normal. This is what normal people go through. But I know that I'm not normal, but to me it's normal because those are my experiences. So I can't step in somebody else's shoes and judge their normal, but I can just say, this is what my normal was. And I had to make decisions to be different so that I could be better, or use this as kind of a platform to launch from. So you can't use it as a weight. It's got to be something different.
I love that. I can be different, and I can play bigger. I can be bigger.
Right. Yeah. You have to. I think, you know, I know you had Brad Davidson on, and he and I were talking a couple of months ago, and he shot me this image of this quote that he gave me, and he said, I saw this, and the first person I thought of was you. And I don't remember how the quote goes. I mean, I've shared it with you, and something to the effect that, you know, I love it when people who've been through hell come walking out of the flames with buckets of water for those still consumed by the flames, or something to that effect. And he goes, and I thought of you right away. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess, you know,
That
but
is you.
I don't always see myself that way. You know, I look at myself as I made it. I'm good. I'm moving on. I'm making things happen. So
What's your greatest lesson from all the stuff in your life? What's your greatest lesson?
never give up.
So how do you teach that to your kid? Your kids? You have blended
Blended.
bonus.
Same same thing. You know, it's never give up. You know, it might not look good. It might not feel good. It might be a little bit of a struggle. It might be a little frustrating, but you can't give up on it. Maybe you got to change direction, and that's okay. But don't give up, because if you quit, you'll never know what could have happened. You know, and all three, I'll say my kids, but they're Carrie's and my kids. All three of our kids are good kids, and they've all had struggles, you know, here and there, but they can't give up. And we want them to continue to strive and achieve, and they're all doing really, really well. You know, our oldest is finishing up a course. He's got a year left to finish up to be a radiology tech. And then our middle daughter, she's going to be graduating from college next year as well, and then hopefully going on. She plans on going on to be a PA. And then our youngest, he's still in high school, but he claims he's got the world all figured out. He's going to be the chairman of the Federal Reserve someday.
Wow.
So they've got focus and they've got drive, and they don't give up. So
that comes from you. I believe that our children mirror what we teach, you know, and it's not that we're perfect. We all make mistakes, but our kids are so influenced by what we do, how we live our life, our actions, our behaviors. So who was your role model? Who was your champion in life that helped you be the person you are today?
You know, I think there's been a lot of different influences on me. My two grandmas were both big influences on me for different reasons. I shared a post on Facebook yesterday. They had a picture of my grandma who, you know, was doing, I don't even know what she was, some kind of sewing or whatever else, but Mohican Indian, raised on the reservation, went to mission schools, had a lot of wisdom with her. Used to always tell me, you're going to be anything you want, you'll be president someday if you want to, type of thing. So always that encouragement and that pushing you to go after your dreams. So she did that with every one of her grandkids. My other grandma was a lot more stoic, but she raised a big family, and that was my mom's mom, and she had to deal with the loss of her daughter. And with that, she had 12 kids, farmed her whole life. Very determined woman, but also she just kind of had that aura about her that's Doad. You don't mess with Doad, you know, type of thing. And it wasn't a bad don't mess with Doad. It was don't test her, because she will tell you where you stand. And then I think, you know, the other one would be my dad, and I see the role model differently than maybe some people do, because my dad struggled with addiction, with alcoholism, and the message in that is no matter how bad it got, at some point he made a decision and changed. And it's the concept of redemption, that even when people go down a wrong path, they've got to figure it out. We can't do it for them, you know, and as kids, we can't direct that at all. We just kind of live through it. But then to see him years later make a decision, hey, you know, this is who I am and what I am, and I'm changing. And so that redemption piece, I think, is also another part of that I see as a role model type point of that, because if you never give up, right? As bad as it is, and all the bad decisions that might have happened, at some point you can make a change and do better. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your situation is. I don't care what your ethnic background is. I don't care what your socioeconomic is. I don't care about any of that. At some point, you can make a decision and be different. And that's up to you, period. And so when I put those three people together, those are kind of my trifecta, so to speak, of role models.
As you were just speaking, do better, Warwick Dunn. I don't know if you've ever heard the story of Warwick Dunn. His mom used to say, are you going to be bitter or are you going to be better?
Right.
And bitterness rocks us, right? It keeps us stuck, and it chains us to the past. We can never move forward. We can never be who we are meant to be if we don't let go.
Right.
And but to be better whole, whether we feel like, sometimes the things that happen to us, it's like we feel like we deserve to be angry, we deserve to make the stand, whatever it is. But at the same time, if we don't let go and believe and I believe there's a higher court, you just like, you know what, you take care of this.
Yeah.
So we can be better.
Yeah, and I agree with that. One of the things that all three of our kids have been into sports, and they've done well in sports, and they've participated. They're not superstars, and they're not D1 athletes or anything like that, but they've been very active in sports. And we've, my wife has said this. She's overheard parents, and they get frustrated. Their kid doesn't get this, and their kid doesn't get that, and that kid gets all the. It's like, at what point do we as individuals have to apologize for working hard and being successful at what we do? And sometimes that's that bitterness. People are holding on to that bitterness. Well, look what they have, and I don't have that. And look what they have, and I don't have that. I don't care what you have. I mean, I'm saying that in a nice way. You earned it. You earned having the scholarship, or you earned having the nice job, or you earned having, the perfect family, whatever it might be. It doesn't matter to me. That's yours. You earned that. I'm in control of me and what I can do. And what I can do is I can be, happy for what people have brought onto themselves. It's, you have to own who you are and be proud of who you are. And you give that same kind of opinion to others as well. Be proud of who they are and what they've done. In that article that I shared about my grandma, she talked about our great grandfather Bosie, and he had a phrase that he said, and I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's something to the effect that don't look up to a person. You never look up to a person. You only look up to God. Never look down on yourself, but always look a man in the eye, and don't let anybody look down on you, and don't let anybody look up at you. We're all equal. It's a paraphrase, but the essence basically is just be who you are, respect people for who they are, and the only person that you give any kind of higher authority to be, the Great Spirit or God. So in that sense, you're letting people be who they want to be. You're being who you want to be, and you guys are respecting and working with each other and helping each other out be better, not tear each other down with bitterness and animosity and whatever. I mean, we have to figure out how to live better and respect people for who they are. I've got a lot of friends who've done great things. Do they have nicer stuff than me? Sure. Who cares? They deserved what they got. They earned it. They made decisions to be better at who they are and what they do, and I'm proud of them for that.
Amazing. It reminds me of the exercise we do where it's just, instead of putting people in boxes, it's understanding and recognizing I have a strength, you have a strength, you have a gift. How do we step within that? Exactly, you said, how do we empower each other? And what a powerful message even now in this world. We are because of each other. It's not all about us. We're just a piece to the puzzle, but our piece connects and interlocks with everyone else's piece.
Right.
We're not the piece.
Yeah. I just had a thought just like fly out of my head. It was something to do with the forge when we were at what we called it back then. I'll think about it. I'll bring it back.
All right.
Real good interview topic there, wasn't it? Exactly.
So what's your biggest fear right now?
I don't want to necessarily call it a fear, but my biggest challenge is getting through my counseling. It's the fear of actually going back and experiencing those things in the way that I have to get through them, but that it doesn't change me. That it doesn't put me into a different place, because it's really, really a struggle for me. And as positive as I like to be on things, that really is a big, it's a big obstacle for me to tackle. It really is. So my biggest fear is getting through that. But my biggest fear is, I'm always afraid to fail at things, and believing in myself. And part of that comes to having gone through the abuse and the self-worth that really you struggle with after going through that you don't always feel like you're good enough. And so getting over those hurdles. So those are the things that I struggle with. So I don't know if I'm really afraid of anything aside from, I just know those are struggles that I have to deal with, and they get frustrating. I mean, they piss me off sometimes, to be honest with you. I mean, they really do.
It's okay.
But it is. It's just that's the mess that I was dealt with, that I've got to figure out on my own. So nobody can do it for me. I got to do it myself.
So how does forgiveness tie into all of this?
I'm not sure yet. I don't know that I've gotten there. I know that sounds odd to say, and I'm just being honest. I think that I would like to get there. I think I've not let it be as much of a hold on me anymore, but I don't know that I've gotten all the way to forgiveness yet. And that's a struggle too. I'm not holding any ill will to the person that took advantage of me and abused me. I know the person. I still actually bump into the person on occasion, but I've never addressed it with the individual. And in my mind, I don't know that either I'm ready to or I want to. It's almost like I don't want to give them any opportunity to change what I'm going through to help myself, if that makes sense. I don't want excuses. Oh, that's not really what happened. That's, I don't want any of that. I just want to be able to fix myself and then move forward.
Well, and forgiveness is a process.
It is.
Whatever you come from, I look at, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, how many times should we forgive? And it was 70 times 7, but it's not literally 70 times 7. It's a continuation, right? And I believe for us, for people who are listening, watching, a lot of times it starts with us. That we have to forgive ourselves for where we were, that we didn't know. And that we're not bad, and it's not just the abuse, it's just in life too. Sometimes it's like, it's a moment, it's like, okay, you know what, I'm good enough, forgive me, I look in the mirror, I got this, and forgiveness for other people also means that I refuse to let you control my life. I let go of the higher court, whatever your belief is, they're going to take care of you, I take back my life.
Yeah, and that's where I think I'm at with that too. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying. It resonates, because that's really what it is I'm not letting that control me. I'm letting me control me. Yeah. And so whether I have to openly go forgive that individual or talk about who they are, or I don't think that's important. I think what's important is the fact that, I'm improving, I'm making better of myself and moving forward. And in a session I had not too long ago, the counselor asked me a question about if I felt shame. And when she asked that, I was completely shut down. Nobody ever asked me that before. And there's a lot of shame in what you go through, but it's because of how we approach it as people who think that what did we do wrong? How did we bring this onto ourselves? And when she said that, she just left me sit there. And I was lost in my head, emotionally lost for, I couldn't even tell you how long. And then she finally broke the silence and moved on to something else. But that one word that shook me to my core, and nobody's ever asked me that before. And it's really, and the hard part is knowing that, actually not just knowing, but believing that you didn't do anything wrong. That's really hard to do when you go through that. So,
though, Dean, and I just thank you for going there. And I know that it's part of your story, it's part of your healing process, it's part of how you help other people heal. And I know it's not comfortable,
Right.
Most people, whenever we talk about our story, whatever story it is, it's hard because it does bring up things.
Mm-hmm.
But because of your willingness to share, it truly opens the door to create hope like that little girl. And even
Yep.
if your story was meant for one person, you made a difference to that one person. It's the analogy of that starfish story, which I absolutely love, you know, where this guy is watching somebody in the distance, like they're doing a dance. It's like they're picking something up and they're throwing it in the water. They're picking something up, throwing in the water, and they come up, and there's starfish all the way around, all over the place. And this guy is picking up starfish and he's putting it in the water. And he said, "What are you doing? Like, there's all these starfish, they're gonna die." And he says, it doesn't make a difference. And the guy picks up a starfish and he goes to put it in the water. He goes, "But it made a difference to this one."
Yep. Yep.
And that's what you're doing. So I'm going to open this up. If anyone has questions or comments for Dean, put it in the Q&A, and I'd like to quickly bring you in. And as we're waiting for that, just last thoughts from you, Dean. This is your place to speak your mind. What's your message? What do you want people to know?
Why, these are big, tough questions, Mary.
Oh, you can handle them.
You know, for me, I just want people to know that there's always hope.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how messy, how bad it is. There is always, always, always hope. There's never a time that anybody should ever give up. Even those that are passing and they're at that point in their life, that's just the next journey. Mm-hmm. And for those that are being left behind, there's always hope that what's happening to them is an, I guess, say an improvement, but that you're going to meet again, right? But there's always hope, no matter what. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care how dire the situation is. There's always hope. And in the stories I've read about other people who've come out of some very traumatic situations, it's always the same message. There's always hope. I mean, I used to have a phrase, and I had a book I was working on that I've just kind of let go. But the title was "A Little Hope in My Pocket."
Oh.
You always have that little bit of hope no matter what. And as long as you hang on to that, everything can always be better. I don't care what the situation is. I really don't. It can always be better. Okay. Just have a little in your pocket.
You need to pick up that little idea again, because you've already written 2 books. And I go back into, it's not for you.
Right.
It's someone else. And
it's not.
Just one person that reads it, a little hope in their pocket, they need that. And especially I look at what's happening now. There's so many people don't have hope. Like, we're in this, there's massive change nonstop, and we get hope and then it's taken away. And we get hope and it's taken away.
So we have to believe it ourselves first. We can't let anybody else give us that hope. You know, as frustrating as what's going on in our world today, I still have hope that it's going to be better. And that's my belief. You know, I don't care what anybody else tells me about how bad things are and how this is bad and that's bad. I still believe that it's going to get better. I still believe there's a positive coming out of this in some way. But at the same time, we can't stop living because of it. We have to take control and live.
Say that again.
We have to take control and live. We have to have an undying, what was my title? an undying drive for life.
Oh, my Dean. And here's the Dean we know. Angie Larkin says, "Love to Dean. He was in my leadership class."
I remember Angie very well.
Yeah.
That was a fun class when we were in that. So
yeah,
appreciate that.
So what's your next level? What's your next thing that you're doing?
Honestly, the next thing that I think I'm going to do from a fun standpoint is I love coaching, and I haven't coached. I was coaching soccer for a lot of years with my kids, and now that my kids are actually moving out of high school, I believe that I'm going to go back to coaching, and probably coaching soccer for like your mid to late teens. So I have a lot of fun inspiring kids to do better, be better, do things that they don't think that they can do, believe in themselves. That's always the most fun, is to watch somebody. One of my kids is a left-footed left-footed soccer player, and he would get in front of the goal and he'd always rotate himself around and shoot with his left foot. And I'm like, you're got to do it with your right foot sometime. He finally scores a goal with his right foot. You swore I gave him $1 million or something. He came running off that field so happy. But it's just that belief in them and encouraging that they can do better, and let them know where their level is, not let them decide where that level is, because we can see things in people that they can't see in themselves. So,
oh, true.
That's next for me.
I actually have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
So, Chris, I'm going to bring you in live. Frank Harrison's on here, says, great inspiration, Dean, amazing share.
Appreciate that. And Frank is inspiring to me because I still can't believe he did that log so easily.
So Chris, you're coming on, so just hit your video. There you are, and then your mic. It's good to see you.
It's been a while. How you been?
Oh, great.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I recognize the voice, but I can't see Mr. Robinson.
You're not missing anything.
I've got a feedback thing up on my page, so I don't know.
Oh,
anyway,
you can fill it off.
I can close it?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Now where'd Chris go?
He's there.
He's still here.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
Chris, go ahead and ask your question.
So my question for you, sir, you were talking about when you did that tree climb with the walk across and everything, how when you got partway up there, Mary started yelling at you to get out of your head. What are some ways that we can get out of our own head when, 90% of the problems we face a lot of times, I think, are just stupid things that we put in our own way or issues we put in our own mind? What are some ways we can just get out of our head and approach a problem a little bit differently to get through it?
That's a great question.
That's a really good question. And in that situation, I'll kind of tell you what I did up in the log. Is the first thing I did is I got my breathing under control. Because I was letting my emotions dictate myself, and I had to get right, and I had to start telling myself, I believe, I had to tell myself I can do this, and I almost had to convince myself of that, right? I really had to get out of my head and tell myself, no, you can actually do this. You're not going to get hurt. You're not going to fall. People are here to support you. Just drive forward, whatever that might be. And we have so much self-talk that we do that undermines our potential, and we have to filter that out, and we have to start reflecting on what are the things that I can do. And if you've got that much doubt happening, just take a step back for a while and just do something different, and then come back with you know what, I can do this. And I forget who the person is that talks about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Do it.
Mel Robbins, 5-second rule.
Yes.
Mel Robbins, yeah.
Oh, Robbins, that's right. So it's even like the jumping out of the airplane thing. They told me when I was hanging from the strut of the airplane, on the count of 3, let go. So we're gonna go 3, 2, 1, let go. And I always joke, I tricked myself. I went to 2 and I let go. So I went 3, 2, gone. You make the commitment and you do it. So you have to get the self-doubt out, and you just have to do it. So really, sometimes you just have to do it. JFDI, right? Just focus and do it. No, JFDI, just focus and do it. Yeah. You just got to do it. So does that help you, Chris?
Definitely.
Awesome.
If not, you can hold me.
I know where to find you.
It's good seeing you. Hopefully your dad's doing well.
Definitely. He's doing good now.
Good.
Good.
All right, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
All right, it is right up at 10 o'clock. And again, I just want to thank everyone for being here. Thanks, Dean, for just your authenticity and your transparency and your message. Oh my gosh, I just adore you. And, I believe that there are people who need your message even more than you believe they need your message. And you had said something about sometimes you get so stuck in the forest that you can't see through the trees.
Yep. And
just know that everything that you've done up until now, if you ever get stuck in that forest, you go back into, where's your coin? Pull it out, just reminding who you are, because you got this.
Yeah, I do. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then again, reminder, next week at 9 a.m. we have Dante Scott. Can't wait to have him on. He is the president of the Las Vegas Housing Association and the CEO of the Nevada nonprofit group that he helps unfortunate people get housing and jobs, which is amazing. So he's gonna talk about another person who's come through adversity. Whew. I mean, we all have adversity, but it's what we do with it. And that's why I love this program so much, is because it's people like you and I, right? It's people who live it, that we do something. It's people like you, Dean, that are saying, no matter how hard it is, and I'm still in my journey, I don't believe we ever arrive. Like, we don't just say, we're here, it's step by step, it's day by day. Sometimes we fall down, but it's getting back up and going, all right, today's a new day. So.
Absolutely. I wish it was that easy, but it's not. It's all about the journey. So it really is.
It is. So thanks again, Dean. Absolutely adore you, my friend. And this is day one.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Mary.
You're welcome.
I won't be as elusive.
What's that?
I said I won't be as elusive next time.
That's okay. That's okay.
All right. Bye.
Have a great day.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.